Again, thank you everyone for coming to our panel on Evolve Systems and Evolving AI. We're going to be talking today about how our team has been using AI, some of the tips and tricks from our team of experts, and what it means to really be using AI in our world today. This idea for conducting this panel came from a conversation that we were having on an internal dialogue about what would it be like if we were to bring our clients in our network together, not just to talk about the basics of AI, but how are we as a digital marketing agency in the middle market using AI on a daily basis? And so we thought about what would it be like if we just did it and had friends come together and share some of the insights from some experts in the industry. So here we're going to be talking about some of the smart ways to actually start using AI. We're not going to be just talking about what it is or why you should use it. We all kind of know why, but how. And I'm really looking forward to diving into some of this content. So Shannon, would you like to go to the next slide? If you're not familiar with Evolve Systems, my name is Don Raleigh. I've been on the team for 8 years, and that's certainly older than ChatGPT. So officially, I'm actually a human. I'm really speaking right now, and I'm sure I'm sure that there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about that AI has actually created in this presentation. But thankfully, here I am, and I'm really here. We are going to be discussing what does it mean for AI-generated content and how it applies to the business world. We're going to be talking about the technical side. And so if you are a person that has a background in technology development and more of a deeper dive into the conversation, this is a perfect panel presentation for you. You will be walking out of this presentation with actual tips and tricks, and you will receive the panel presentation and the recording after this conversation. So we're going to be going through what the limitations and awareness are of ChatGPT and Bard AI, the data privacy and protection, what does it mean to have bias and fairness within the organization, dependency and job displacement, and what does it mean to have ethical AI usage, as well as content sources and plagiarism. How do you know what is appropriate? How do you know what is not? What is stolen? What is yours? When it comes to the AI content, what does it look like for AIs, and actually going through a demo of how do you refine images that are best suited for your business, the tips and tricks on how to produce quality results, and the practical application that we are all seeking in our business worlds. The thing that we love most about AI is the assistance that it can generate for search engine optimization, and you're going to be learning more about that. And then how do you evolve through AI? Having an open session time with some of our team members about how do you actually use it on a daily basis and asking some of the questions. So with that being said, it's my pleasure an opportunity to introduce our panelists today. Don, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Donald Raleigh, not to be confused with Don Raleigh. Don and I have been working at Evolve Systems, it seems like most of our lives.
It feels like it.
It does. I got my start in the United States Army. I was a military intelligence non-commissioned officer working on the former East German border. And we paid a lot of attention to, things like security and emerging technologies. And after I left the military, I spent time at a company called Control Data. And we designed very, very large data migration and data transfer systems, email systems. We did short messaging systems or texting. And we're best known, I think, for the mainframes that we built, which basically powered a lot of America for a number of years. 21 years ago, a little over 21 years ago, I was one of the founders, along with Marnie, who's our CEO. We founded Evolve Systems, and the idea was exactly found in our name, and that was technology is not stagnant. It is constantly evolving, and you're going to see today some of the things that we'll talk about are emerging and evolving technologies. And that's been the hallmark of what we do, is staying on top of and hopefully staying just slightly ahead of what the trends are going on in the market. Thanks, Don.
Thanks for sharing your insight. I'm looking forward to having all the experience that you bring to the table of a CTO for an organization. What does it mean to implement this technology? Shannon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Don. Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Turner. I am currently an account manager at Evolve Systems, but I spent the 10 years prior to that doing graphic design and copywriting, both for agencies and as a freelancer. So really getting into a lot of those pieces about how do we make things come to life, how do we make them engaging, and how do we connect and communicate in really accurate and effective ways. And now I get to rely on all of the dedicated experts at Evolve to continue building my education around how we do that well.
Lovely. Thanks for those great introductions, everyone. Let's start to lean in. Let's start talking about some of the limitations of AI and awareness of safe usage. Donald, do you want to take the reins on starting off the content?
Yeah, the very first thing that we need to talk about is not just what the technology does, but how do we protect ourselves and our companies? And again, I'm going to be coming at this from the Chief Technology Officer side, because it's not just about what can be done, it's how should we do it. There is an old axiom of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I want to talk about what does it mean for the company and the safety and security of the organization as AI starts to get implemented. I will tell you from firsthand experience, for those companies that have not adopted any type of an AI policy yet, your employees have. Everybody is using AI, and I'll step back a little bit and kind of define what AI actually means in practical terms. Artificial intelligence just isn't just something that suddenly popped up and now we have ChatGPT or some of the other tools that are out there. And I'll talk specifically about ChatGPT today because unfortunately the topic is so broad and wide and deep that if we tried to cover multiple different platforms, we would be spending all of our time talking about the intricacies of the differences between them. I want to talk about ChatGPT as a general. So in general, when I say ChatGPT, I mean most of the AI engines, without calling out one specifically, even though it sounds like I am. So for most of our companies, we've been using some derivative form of AI ever since we got into like Microsoft Word. So if you're utilizing Microsoft Word and you start typing a sentence and it predicts what you're about to say and suggests the end of your sentence, whether it's a single word or finishing a phrase that you're writing on, that is the predictive nature of an AI or an artificial intelligence. And at its most basic level, we're looking at what's called large language models. So imagine, if you will, taking all of the words in the English dictionary and putting them into a model or a database, if you will, that as you start typing, it knows what words could be possible based off of the first letters that you are actually typing in. So if I were to type a word that started with W, there's a limited number of words that can start with W. As I add letters to it, the predictive engine will figure out a smaller and smaller data set of what I could possibly mean. So if I type in WED, there's only a limited number of words like Wednesday, WEN, WEL, WES will each have different predictive words that are going to be suggested. The same thing happens with ChatGPT. As you start typing things in, it looks at the large language model and predicts what it is that you are trying to ask. Much like Google, we would go in and we tell Google, how many trees in North America. It's really, really difficult for it to understand what you're looking for. But Google would return a page that was related to the topic. What ChatGPT does is it returns as many articles as it can to itself and then summarizes that for you without bringing you to a page. Now, these are all about vast amounts of personal and sensitive data. So on the data privacy and protection, the practical application of this that I would suggest to everybody listening is, if you're using ChatGPT or any of the other engines, if you type something in, it becomes part of the large language model, and the system learns what you're typing by learning what it is that you are getting as a result. So once you've gotten a result within the system, you have the ability to say, yep, that's what I was looking for, by giving it a thumbs up, or you can further refine. And it's the refining that is a different side than what we saw in Google. Because in Google, once you get a return, you have to scroll down and pick what it is that you think you wanted in the first place. With these large language models, you will get a return, and then you can ask the system to further refine what it is you're looking for. So as you're putting things into ChatGPT, understand that the data privacy that you have with other systems is not there. It can be searched and it can be returned over time. Next slide, please. This gets us into bias and fairness. So every one of these engines is designed by and written by a human. That means their biases are going to be put into the systems inherently. Like, for example, let me define what bias means. When I type in English words, the system is going to be biased for the English language. I could start typing in foreign languages, but it's going to get confused because I'm using a biased system. The same type of thing is going to happen in the returns that you get. So this can lead to what some would consider unfair or potentially even discriminatory outcomes. And that's why, as you look at utilizing any of these LLMs or like ChatGPT, as you're using them, everything that you do should be looked at by a human to make sure that the brand voice and the actual context of what the returns are within the scope of what you actually meant. Don't just cut and paste what ChatGPT says. It may not be what you think it is. Next slide, please. So back a number of years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Henry Ford. And Henry Ford invented a system of taking a car and putting it onto an assembly line. The unions and the boards in New York City saw what was happening with the advent of these Model Ts rolling off of the assembly line in ever increasing numbers. And there was a movement to try to ban vehicles within New York City proper. And it was not driven by pollution or climate change. It was driven by the livery unions, the people that took care of the horses. And the people that were in the equestrian trades, like farriers, these are the individuals that would change the shoes on the horses, or the sanitary workers. There was an entire sanitary worker union that said, if we allow these cars to actually take over our streets, then all of the hardworking people that are in the equestrian trades are going to lose their job. We'll cycle forward a few years, and that prediction actually came true. There are still horses in New York, and they're usually ridden by the police, but they're a tiny fraction of what they used to be. The same thing has been said of AI and the dependencies that are going to come from job displacement. My prediction is AI is not going to replace workers, but workers that are using AI will replace workers that aren't. And I don't mean this as a threat. I mean this as we've gotten great tools with like Microsoft Word. I'll go back to that one. It's hard for us to even consider typing things into Notepad anymore because of all the enhancements that we get from Microsoft Word, like spell check or grammar check. Those are the things that we appreciate about it because it makes our job easier. AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to make our jobs easier. So Shannon, I'm going to hand this one off to you, and we're going to start talking about content sources and plagiarism. If you want to start this off, and I think I'll add a couple things.
Yeah, so for content sources and plagiarism, a lot of what we look for in this is not just with the written content that we're looking at, but also with the images that we're using. So in business, we know that taking anything that already exists on the internet and putting it onto our websites or anything that we are putting out as our own content leads us down a really dangerous path. This can be something, you know, a lot with that written language about, obviously, if you plagiarize something, there are things that are going to flag it, but the same thing happens for images. And something that we look at with images is a lot of people will use a membership platform such as an Adobe Stock or something that's larger like these Gettys that are going to be giving you stock images that are licensed. But then what you're going to see is that if you're someone frequently using these libraries, you start to recognize the stock photography from one use to another. And that's not plagiarism, right? Because you did pay for the license of it, but you do start to realize where these agencies or businesses are getting their content from and whether or not it is something that they've produced on their own.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yeah, so Donald, I'll let you kind of chime in here and then we can walk through a demo.
Yeah, if you can go to the next slide.
Sure.
So in order to really think about this, what we wanted to do is give you a real world example. So let's say that I'm writing a blog about a manufacturing and an organization that is implementing Six Sigma. I may go to Getty Images or Adobe Stock, exactly like Shannon was talking about, and I may type in the prompt, manufacturing plant with busy workers. Now, if I'm on Getty Images, I may get, and this is actually from Getty Images, I'm going to get 7,806 manufacturing plant images with busy workers. These are all going to be stock photos. They're going to be high res. And each of these images are going to cost me anywhere from $175 to $499. So what we wanted to do is take this exact same prompt and put it into ChatGPT with DALL-E 3. So as I typed in the exact same prompt, it came back and showed me what I was looking at. So I then, oh, and by the way, the cost of ChatGPT and DALL-E is $20 a month, and that's for unlimited images and unlimited what we call prompt responses. So taking a look at this image specifically, I decided I wanted to refine it because it didn't give me what I exactly wanted. So I typed in the prompt, using this image, make it photorealistic, high definition, with half the number of workers, and the workers are building valves. So now ChatGPT came back and it showed me a photorealistic image that was more closely aligned, but that still didn't have all the elements that I wanted. So I entered a further refinement, and it came back and said, using the same image, make all the hard hats blue, with one worker having a red hard hat, limit the image to 6 workers, and all the workers are wearing leather gloves. All the workspaces are red, and you can see many of the elements that I was asking for are contained within this image. However, it didn't follow it exactly. If you're looking, there are more than one worker, or there are more than one of them that have red hard hats. So I further refined it and said, using this image, show only 6 workers, 2 with red hard hats, make it high definition, photorealistic with the flag of the USA on the wall. This is my final image, and now I'm going to use this in the blog that I'm writing, and I'm probably going to use elements of ChatGPT to help me write the blog itself. But I want you to notice something, and this will be really important when you get this slide deck and you can look at it yourself. The second worker with the red hard hat has 2 right hands. So the images are not perfect, but they give you an idea of more closely aligning with the image that I was actually looking for in the first place.
Wow, that's fantastic, Donald. From the perspective of somebody who is just a novice into this, and they're getting into understanding what does prompting mean, how do I actually use DALL-E, how much time did you invest into creating this image? Not the first one, but how much time in minutes did it take to get to this point?
Gosh, that sounds like a wonderful question that I should have timed at the very beginning, and guess what I did? This was 6 minutes and 14 seconds from start to finish, and that was me logging into ChatGPT, enabling DALL-E 3, and then going through the iterations, looking at what I wanted, and then thinking about how did I really want the image to be displayed.
That's lovely. And I know that we talked earlier about the privacy and policy acts, but are you able to use this image on any type of marketing materials or your blog topics? Is this legal?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really comes down to an interpretation of the law itself. I cannot copyright this as an image that I created, but I could make sure that I've got some protections on the way that I'm using it, the stylization, and potentially I could copyright the prompts that I use to get there. However, let's say that I wanted to use this on my marketing material and then later submit that marketing material in defense of my copyright. Let's say that I put the company's logo up there next to the flag. I would be able to protect my copywritten logo, but I would not be able to protect the rest of the image because it was AI derived.
Sure. I think that hones in on the fact of you can use this AI to get started.
Yeah.
All this information is accessible, but there's still that human element that in which you need to take that final step to actually make it your own. Because AI, as you see the two right hands, I did not see that before this presentation. Very nice catch. It's imperative to make sure that you're staying on brand and still maintaining that presence of what does it mean to have your own company being reflected here. So while AI images will never truly replace the human element, I think we can all see that this is a pretty good photo for a blog topic about American workers. I think that this segues perfectly into the next topic of we used it for images and we talk about the legality behind it, but what about the plagiarism and how can we use this for content development? Shannon, do you want to progress to the next slide and talk a little bit about what does it mean for content development?
Yes. So as I go into content development, just while we're still on this slide, I do want to highlight when I talked about how stock photo becomes so recognizable for the people who are in there really often. This is a way to differentiate yourself from what already exists. And also for industries who have particular products or services that are very difficult to visualize, they may find that they're really limited to the images available online. When you're looking at building a website and then also building blogs upon that, you will run out of photos pretty quickly. And so using ChatGPT with DALL-E gives you an opportunity to create what doesn't already exist based on what you are really looking to create.
Yeah, and Shannon, one thing you just noted was really important as well, and that is, let's say that you have some intellectual property on your manufacturing floor. You'd have to clear all of that off before you take any images of it. Otherwise, it enters into the public domain. This is another way to protect yourself by using the public domain to not put your stuff into the public domain. And I just said public domain like 4 times in a row.
You're definitely not AI, are you, Donald?
I am not.
Okay, so we can dive into how this really relates to content in general. So beyond just the imagery, we'll start talking about how it comes across in written form and some of these other areas. But it's going to allow us to build upon what we just saw here with Donald's demonstration. So some tips and tricks for when you are using AI to generate content, whether you're doing anything visual or if you're producing written content, these are going to help you really get the results that you're looking for. So first of all, something that Donald just demonstrated for us really well is iterative prompts. So you can go on to ChatGPT or any of these platforms and enter your prompt and have something produced. The thing that you need to consider is that other people may be entering that exact same prompt and getting very similar results or sometimes even the same. And so in playing with iterations, we're able to not only differentiate ourselves from other people, but also start to really hone in on our core message. So iterations can be done within the same system in the way that Donald did, specifying more and more as you go through, having ChatGPT build upon the results it's already given you, but you can also do some cross-platform variations. So if I want to see what ChatGPT does and then jump over to another AI platform and put in that same prompt, I can start gathering information, and that's going to not only point out the really strong points that are coming from both sides, but also any gaps for anything that may have been missing from that first piece that I put through.
That's a great point. The way that I do that too is by creating something in ChatGPT, copy and paste it in Bard, and see if it comes back with the same results. It's impressive about how these things can continue to evolve and become more and more aligned.
Absolutely. And even as you get those responses, you can put the response it gives you back in as a prompt to have it continue refining and cleaning things up in a number of ways. One of the ways that you can alter something that you're putting in is by asking ChatGPT or your platform to present the response in a different voice or tone. This can be really great for when you're trying to align with your branding or for when you're communicating with someone very specific. You may be putting something in there that comes back really black and white, really like bulleted out, and you need to soften this into something that's going to be delivered in a more conversational friendly format. You can ask ChatGPT to change the entire tone of what's coming through. And doing that in a couple of different ways can again help give you some alternative phrasing so that when you're going to compose all of this together, you can be really taking the best of every world and create what you're truly trying to do. And that's great for people who aren't necessarily a strong writer too, to have all of these resources to pull from to really create something strong. Another tip and trick is to ask for uncommon answers. So because AI is a system that's learning as it goes, it's going to give you the content that seems the most relevant and the most general right away. Whereas if you start to work with ChatGPT to say, you know, maybe what are some less common reasons that people seek a marketing agency? Might be something that we at Evolve are looking for. By generating some more of those uncommon lists, I can start to use those as points that I want to speak to in my content. And it's going to give me a different angle than anyone else who's using ChatGPT.
So essentially, you'd be able to use this in a way of evaluating your own company and asking what are the unique identifiers that we're not focusing on, and how can we change our perspective, or what are we not thinking about that AI can help generate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it can be great for that. And in that same sense, I mean, you can even use it by maybe taking your homepage first paragraph, dropping it into ChatGPT and saying, summarize the key points of this. And then just seeing, are these key points what I really want to be telling my users first and foremost? How are my competitors showing when I put them through that same exercise? So it really can become as deep as you want it to, but it's a great way to start to study how your content is coming across.
Man, that's such a good point, especially coming from the sales perspective of looking at marketing materials and asking, is this what we actually do? Would this make sense if it's coming from a different perspective? Because sometimes you are too close to see it. Really good point, Shannon.
Absolutely. You know, and kind of feeding on that same point, one of the ways that I like to really use ChatGPT is to start by having it source a list of common pain points that people have for a certain issue, so that as we draft copy around it or start to create resources for this, we're able to feed it back to the typical reasons that people even need this. But instead of just generating that first list and saying, these are the 10 most common pain points, let's feed into them, I'll then take my list of 10 most common and go one by one, re-entering each statement into ChatGPT as if it's its own topic, so that it will go more and more granular and I can really get down to the nitty-gritty details about how I can combat this pain point.
Lovely.
So that really allows you to get a lot deeper as you go in, and it's not just for pain points. You can have ChatGPT, anything that you're working on, any sort of a list or an outline, it can go deeper and deeper and deeper the more you want to kind of section out your content. And that's a great way to work with ChatGPT.
Now, I've heard that there are some rumors about going deep down into the rabbit hole about how sometimes ChatGPT kind of forgets and has memory problems. Is it true that on average you can only do about 10 prompts deep before you start losing some of that traction?
Yeah, a lot of the times when you're entering something into ChatGPT, you're going to want to make sure that you're including things in your prompt that are always going to bring it back to kind of that original point of what you're going for. And that's part of the benefits of doing that kind of iterations in there, is that you're replacing that information in there. So it's starting from your new point. So as you refine and refine and refine, you keep putting in that information just to make it better.
Yeah, and you saw that, Don, in the images. I said, using the previous image, do this new thing.
Exactly.
Which is a great point, Donald. It can almost be like working with a child when you're working with AI, is that it doesn't know what it doesn't know. It needs to really be directed. So the more you can tell it, the more it's going to give you what you want. Whereas if it's more ambiguous directions, then you can get more ambiguous results.
It's like talking to a really smart 2-year-old.
A really, really smart 2-year-old. Just got to ask him the right questions. Another way to use AI that's really beneficial is just for proofing of your pre-written copy. So a lot of us, we move quickly. We have a lot of communications that are going out. We don't always have time to get a second set of eyes on our pieces. And things like Grammarly, I'm sure you've noticed, only go so far, right? So this gives you another way where you're able to just enter your copy into an AI platform like ChatGPT and say, proofread this for grammar, proofread this for readability. And it can just go through and give you kind of that fail-safe of like, yes, this content is good to go, and you can send it out without feeling like you need to kind of go through all these extra channels within your team.
Now, we just had a question come through and asking about what is the kind of the timeline of ChatGPT. If you're using the free version, it will sometimes say, just as a forewarning, we only have information up to 2021. Is that true for all versions of ChatGPT, or is it only up until 2021?
Well, as a large language model, it has to have what we call demarcation points, or temporal jump-offs. So the first iteration of ChatGPT, I think its jump-off point was 2021, and it really didn't know anything after that. The next iterations keep getting more and more caught up. I think kind of the moving to the next level of these large language models is starting to search things in real time. We're not there yet. It's just too computationally difficult, but that is an aspiration for, I would say, the near future. Now, the holy grail of all this is for the large language models to start learning how to learn. And I think what you're getting to is, when does ChatGPT start using itself to learn what comes next? We're not there yet, and that's what a lot of the discussions that are happening in the political arena out in Washington, D.C. on the limitations, or the having political blocks to what's coming with AI, because we have lots of sage advice from people like Isaac Asimov and Kurzweil and others that have written pretty interesting science fiction novels like I, Robot. What's going to happen? And it's not that I'm trying to scare people that the AI is going to take over, but the AI is going to take over.
Great. Well, let's move on from that thought.
Yes. Okay. Back into the fun stuff. So the next tip and trick is to understand the difference between having ChatGPT and these AIs produce content for you versus editing and refining content for you. So if you are having something produce content for you from scratch, that's where you're going to want to have a lot more human intervention, because this is, again, content going out to everyone. It's going to be repetitive. It's not going to have your voice. It just requires a lot more involvement to make sure that you're actually getting what you want out of it, versus editing is something where you're able to move a little bit faster, knowing that it's coming off of your core content and really just refining what already exists. So as much as you're able to provide those kind of ingredients for ChatGPT to really just build upon, is much better than just having it produce content out of nowhere, unless you're doing something like an outline where you intend to really build out further. Because to the last point here, human intervention is paramount. We are not at the point where we can just trust AI to do the job without anyone looking at it. So we're going to walk through a couple of real life examples of how to use ChatGPT in various areas of business, and you'll see how that human intervention piece continues to be important. So for our examples, I wanted to start off by discussing recruitment and job descriptions, because AI is so great for anyone who's in human resources or business operations to really have some efficiencies in how some of this work gets done. Some of the ways that AI is really helpful is outlining contracts, policies, and procedures, and then having your legal team be the kind of human element on that. But these are not things that have any sort of fluffiness in them. There's a lot of just black and white pieces. So having AI produce this for you is going to just give you a way better point to start off of, so that you're just doing some more refining and cleaning up. Especially if you're someone who is updating your policies year over year, this is a way to do that a little bit faster with a lot of documents, instead of having someone manually spend billable hours doing that. Another piece is onboarding documents. These can be really large and robust, and it's easy to have a lot of ideas in your head, but not really understand how to put pen to paper and get this organized in something that's going to be efficient for your new hires. So leaning into ChatGPT or your AI tool to start kind of outlining the important points. You can use the job description that you can have. You can enter anything specific about the business to really make it really hone in on who this person is and what they're going to need. And then you're able to kind of build in your content there with that human element. Lastly is job descriptions and listings. And this is one that we're going to demo because this is a place where ChatGPT and AI tools really shine. So if you are posting a new job description, you want to get that out right away. You want to get your applications coming in quickly. You want the hiring process to be smooth. You don't have a month to sit on refining these kinds of job descriptions or going back and forth internally to figure things out. You need it to get out of the door and get up online. So I went through ChatGPT with the prompt, write a job description for a sales team member who has extensive experience in manufacturing. And I do encourage you to do these exercises on your own so you can actually see the output of the tools, but it gives really robust responses. So it's more than something I could paste in here. What it did give me is the job title, a full position overview in paragraph format, a list of responsibilities that have 5 subcategories that really adhere to being sales manufacturing, qualifications that are specific to this role with 4 subcategories within that with content in each, and then closing and a call to action for how you can actually apply to this position. So it gave me everything I need to actually post this job. Now, of course, we want to have that human element to make sure it's accurate, but this gave me the bones to be producing a job description in 5 minutes instead of a week, a month, however long it would normally take me. So looking in this as kind of real life use cases, how am I going to iterate this to really make sure that it's going to do what I want it to? For a job description, the ways that you can iterate are refine to include the years of experience, add keywords to specify skills and characteristics that you really need to draw in for this position. You can draft a compelling overview of your company culture. So starting to make it more than just this job description, but also doing a little bit of the sales piece of why you want to join our team, why it's really good to work here. And again, these can be things where you're just entering even bullet points or like a quick list, and ChatGPT will create it in a way that you can then just kind of edit and refine. Also, place your description into some of those other AI generators so that you're able to see how they're going to put this same job into a different description so that you can start feeling what is most aligned with me, what really fits with our brand and everything, and then start kind of piecemealing that together. So at that point, we get to the human intervention piece. So you'll see in every example that we give, review word by word for accuracy is always listed because, again, you don't know what you're getting out here and you want to make sure that you're actually saying true things that are like applying to the job that you're giving and bringing in the right people. You'll also want to adjust the voice and tone to align with your brand standards. So if your job description is being posted on your website, it's very likely this person is going to go and check out your about page if they're really interested in a role here. And so you want to make sure that what they're reading on your about page and how they're reading your job description is really in alignment. So it feels cohesive, like it's from the same brand and like you're telling the same story about what they're walking into. The human touch also allows you to add a bit of personality wherever it feels natural. And ChatGPT can fake a little bit of personality, but for your applicants to get the true experience of what it's like to be a part of your company, you're going to want to insert some things that AI just doesn't know how to do, which is your company culture. So it's really important to sprinkle in some of those pieces there. And lastly is to paraphrase for a nice flow and to ensure unique content. So if I got that first draft there and I like it and I didn't want to do the iteration work or anything, it just seems good to go. I still want to do the first and last point on here, which is review word by word and then make sure that I'm paraphrasing so that my post is exactly the same as every other person who's hiring someone for sales and manufacturing. So just kind of having that little human element again to make sure that you're unique and that you're really speaking to your own brand. Communication styles is another area that is huge in business. And this is communicating with your prospects and your clients as well as internally with your team or your bosses or higher ups, anything like that. And so AI can really help you become a better communicator. And this has a lot of use cases. For people who are not a strong writer, this is a really great place. I knew someone who was in a sales position and they were great on the phone, great in person, but when it came to any sort of written communications, they just fell short and felt like they weren't really able to deliver that same experience in writing that they were in person. So we talked about having them just record their voice to text, and putting that text into ChatGPT and having it organize it into an email for them. And it was great. I remember one of the first emails I got from them, I replied and said, "I thought you said you couldn't write. This was perfect." And she told me that she had used ChatGPT to make it that way. So it was really powerful in that regard. But it's also great for anyone, whether you're a good writer or not. It comes in handy when you're altering your tone of voice in written formats. So we all have people who we know like to read things in a fluffy way. They want to read a whole email in story format, and that's how they enjoy communicating. And then there's other people where it's like, if it's not in the subject line and bulleted in this email, I'm not going to know that you said it to me. And so balancing those kinds of characteristics, whether you're in between or on one side or the other, you can have ChatGPT reformat your writing to be more direct and concise, or to be fluffier and more conversational, just really depending on who you're talking to. It also really helps for tough conversations where saying the right thing really matters. And this can even be for in-person conversations. If you are preparing notes for a meeting and you're walking into a difficult situation, have your phrasing mapped out with ChatGPT. Walk through a couple of iterations and scenarios to really hone in on the language that feels good, and communicate with people in the way that they like to be communicated with. So if you need to be more sensitive, ChatGPT can help you. If you need to be more direct, it can help you there as well. So that's good for revising your writing styles, not just in email, but anywhere. So sometimes you'll go to a website and it's just so long-winded that you can't get to the point. You're just going to jump off and go to a different website. You can take that content and drop it into ChatGPT and have it make much more concise content for you, breaking things out into bullet points, paraphrasing, anything that it takes for you to really make it more digestible content. And again, that goes to the other side too. You have 2 sentences, but you need to make this whole page. ChatGPT can help you expand on what you're talking about and break out some bullet points that give you more robust content to work with.
Awesome. I want to make sure that we're taking mind of time here. We only have 20 minutes left for our presentation, and I know that we have a lot of great content to hit on. So just as a forewarning, we're 20-minute mark.
Perfect. Thank you, Don. To go into an example, I wanted to say that we are emailing a client and we are writing an email letting my client know we will not be continuing the relationship. That is the prompt that I entered.
Wow, that's hard.
Yeah. It is. It's really hard, right? How do you start an email like that? How do you even start it? So going into ChatGPT with this prompt, it returned the email subject line for me and 7 paragraphs of content. So an excerpt just to kind of show you the language it was using. The decision to end this relationship is not a reflection of any dissatisfaction with your company. Rather, it is a strategic shift in our business focus and objectives. So the email it sent was really, really lovely. But in going into iterations, I don't want to send someone a 7-paragraph breakup email, because that just feels like those texts that your ex will send you that just go on and on. I don't need the novel. I know you don't want to be with me anymore. So let's kind of get to the points of it. So going through my iteration, I want it to refine the length of the relationship to kind of specify how long we've been working together and the key accomplishments we've had, so that it's going to be both personalized and reiterating the value that we delivered. Then I want it to reduce it to 5 paragraphs. So I'm going to deliver this news a lot more concisely. And if a conversation needs to happen, it can. But I also want to vary that voice and tone for phrasing options, because this is really delicate. So maybe what ChatGPT sent me was nice, but it was a little bit impersonal and I need to warm it up a bit. That's an area where we can pull in some of those other sources. Then again, place your description into all of those other AI generators to get all of those alternatives coming in, and make sure that you're kind of piecing it together so that it flows really seamlessly as though it's not from different content sources. Adding that human touch is really important in somewhere like this. Again, word for word accuracy, adjusting that tone and voice to be in your brand, paraphrasing for a nice flow to ensure that you don't have any of that content that is taken and copied directly. And then in this instance, you want to make it clear you are giving them a personal touch, because no one wants to be broken up with an AI copy paste. So putting in some personal touches here to warm up the conversation is really recommended. Next, we have outlining long form content. So a lot of these pieces that are longer form just end up sitting on the back burner untouched, and we want to make sure that they get out the door. So outlining long form content is something ChatGPT is great at. It can construct your outlines, organize your thought, and also summarize sections so that you're not left to just draft content out of nowhere. So for this one, we did outline a user guide for a newly launched mobile app. It came back with a full outline of 11 main categories, 47 subcategories of what I can be talking about, and notes for how to edit and expand the visuals to create an actual full user guide. So going through some iterations with that, we can ask for some more detailed summaries. And then kind of in that point I was talking about with pain points before, we can start taking each of these 11 categories and entering them as their own. So that it's going to further and further give you more detail that you're able to expand upon. Again, add more detail for the AI tools to adapt content as you go. If you're developing an app or something that has a lot of specificities, those are something that you want to include. Then lastly, having that human touch again, so that you're really able to make sure that everything is accurate. And then this instance, you'll want to user test. So have the user guide or this large format piece that you've created actually be given to someone to try to use. And that's going to give you your best feedback about if it's done a good job. So we had a couple more for landing pages and SEO, but to be conscious of time, I will include these in the deck that we're sending out, but I'm not going to go into the depth of how we went through these exercises so that we just have enough time to do some Q&A. So I will pass it back to Don to open up the floor.
Yeah, I do want to jump back. I know that we have about 15 minutes left. Can we touch on the search engine optimization side? I know that there's a few people that were really excited to lean into that. And again, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with the chat feature. If you're having issues sending a chat in the Google Hangouts, send me an email. The email is don3@evolve-systems.com, and I'll do my best to answer them here. But I know that there's been a few emails already about the search engine optimization.
Perfect, perfect. And if anyone's questions don't get in and Don receives an email, we will do our best to get you a response to that. So for the SEO, SEO is huge. It still matters just as much as it always did. Of course, the algorithms are always changing and adapting, which just makes it more important for you to understand how it all operates. So though SEO should always lean on human intervention, there are a few ways to leverage AI right now. First of all is with your meta info. So this is the information that populates when you're kind of doing those Google searches that are saying that what this site's going to be about and how it's going to kind of direct the keywords that you're typing in. This is something that you can use ChatGPT to help with. It can help you create all of these descriptions and titles and everything based on the content that's already on your website, so you don't have to spend time doing these things. Of course, when SEO is really important to you or you're doing a lot of efforts to really drive business and convert leads, this is where you're wanting to lean into that human aspect and doing a little bit more of your meta info with an expert. But if it's something where you just need to get it going and get it up and running, automating is a great way to get started. This also works for targeted headers. So whatever you're tagging as kind of the important reason, the main intent for this page, making sure that you have targeted headers that are speaking to your audience and indicating exactly what you're talking about on that page is important. So ChatGPT can help you formulate a couple of options that are all hitting the mark. And that allows you to do some A/B testing if you want to for what some of these are. You can put a couple of different headers out there on landing pages and see what does best and start continuing to refine your process for really solid content. The next thing is keywords, developing keyword lists. You can put in topics, have it help you with target research or target market research, having you pull in keywords and also helping rank them. So telling you which ones have the best opportunity. You can even pull in some competitor sites and ask them to pull out the keywords from that page and start kind of using that to build upon. It also helps with page intent. So Google is really looking for all of the pages on your website to be really targeted to a singular topic and a singular goal. And so in telling ChatGPT what your intent is and having it go through your content, it can help refine everything to be more and more targeted and in alignment with what Google is looking for to achieve this. So for this exercise, I just put in a quick prompt of create a keyword list for a landing page about buying holiday gifts for grandma. It came back with 30 keywords. You can specify, of course, how many you want back. It was fairly elementary results, but it's a really good starting point for me to start looking into each of these keywords and figuring out what has a true place. To do some iterations with this, we want to start asking about that ranking so that we're able to see where those opportunities are, get a little bit more detail about the keywords that are coming in. You can also take some of those keywords and then put them in with your topic and start getting a little bit more granular about different ways that people are searching for that same thing. Ask for great SEO opportunities within your prompt. So even if you're saying, I'm writing a page about XYZ, what are some really great SEO opportunities, or what are some blog ideas that will rank high? And start getting ChatGPT to do a little bit of that idea generation for you. You can also source your keyword lists from other tools online that work for SEO, and then pop your keyword lists into ChatGPT and ask it to refine or add or modify those lists based on what your is for that copy. So there's a lot of ways to really massage this process, but it can do a little bit of that groundwork for you. And then with the human touch, again, word for word accuracy, especially with keywords. You don't just want to take a list and say that's gold and pass it off to someone to develop content without reviewing, because there might be terms that you do or do not use in your business, or certain areas where it thinks, well, this is a really popular topic, but you don't want to go for that. So it's really important to have eyes on everything that you're doing. And then for this one, I would also say lean into the experts or the online tools that you have access to make sure that your SEO is going to be a little bit stronger than a DIY project. If you're really confident in SEO, there's a lot of ways to use AI, but if you're not the best at SEO, you just have to be very careful about what you're doing, and don't think that AI is going to have all of the answers. But this is something where you should keep going deeper and deeper and refining along the way. Even once you launch these pages, go back through every couple of months and see how things are doing and where the opportunity lies, so you can keep expanding that content and continuing to drive traffic to that page.
Perfect.
For SEO.
Yeah, perfect. We've gotten some of the questions that are coming in about a lot of the ethics behind the ChatGPT, Bard, and all these other platforms that are coming out. And one of the questions highlighted the fact that it feels as if it's hard to trust AI. Can we talk on how sometimes AI is not always trustworthy, or how do we know that it's something is being backed up, or the links that they share in their references are actually coming from good sources?
You know, I'm going to reference a previous job that I had. I used to be a guard for President Ronald Reagan out in Washington, D.C. And one of the statements that President Reagan was really famous for was, when we were dealing with the Soviet Empire, was trust with verification. And as you've heard from Shannon over and over again, it is utilizing the AI engines to be able to get these responses, but then verify with the human touch. Go back through it. And, just like, AI will return a person with two right hands, it will also return information that may not be trustworthy. And because it's going back and looking at what is currently in, let's call it the vernacular, what is currently trending with the words that are being used. And that may not be the absolute truth of what's going on. I don't want to get any political influences into this conversation, but one of the tests that you can do is pick your favorite either historical figure or political figure and say, write a joke about fill in the blank, and then use the same prompt and say, write a joke about whoever that person's opposite was, whatever political or whatever type of an environment you want to get into, and you'll get drastic results based off of the bias of how that AI engine was programmed. It will be completely different results based off of who the programmers thought should be listened to versus who they allowed the language model to actually pay attention to. One of the things that Shannon talked about as another tip and trick as far as getting to the authoritative sources is she mentioned the word summaries. You can summarize things. One way that I use the AI engines is if I want a really brief overview on a topic that may be too vast for me to read about, I'll find like a PDF that may be 30 pages long, and I'll ask the AI engine, summarize this PDF, giving me 5, 6, however many key bullet points. It will return that. I'll read through it, and I'll get basically, and I don't want to violate copyright, but I'll get the Reader's Digest version, which is, a smaller bite-sized piece. And then it's up to me, if I find the topic interesting, to dig deeper and to dive deeper into that particular topic. But great question, whoever asked that question. Trust with verification, and always check your sources.
Yeah, I think it's worth highlighting how I was writing a blog article and generating ideas. And one of the cool things that you can do with AI is compare. Tell me a situation about something that is similar but in a different field, or compare this to a situation that is related to history. And the prompt that I gave ChatGPT was write a blog article about how sales and marketing teams need to be aligned and give a reference from a book that agrees with this subject. And it wrote this beautiful story about an energy company that a young savvy marketer was having issues because the sales team wasn't selling the right product and they were using it as an additional service when it was a standalone product. And the marketing person was having a hard time communicating it. And it told this triumphant story about how this marketer did a great job of combining sales and marketing together, and by using digital marketing to make sure that everybody had the information at their fingertips in a website that was accessible. Good pitch there, right? But the AI, the point of sharing the story is that it pulled this random book that was never invented by authors who don't exist. And the problem is that it looked authentic. It had a true Chicago style sourcing, and it seemed legitimate. And I spent 20 minutes trying to find where on earth did this book exist from, because it sounded like a really good book. So there's something to be said about telling stories, but you got to make sure that you're not lying, because at the end of the day, ethics comes down to what you allow to permeate outside of your business. And if you are okay with lying to your customers, gosh, it's a tough situation. ChatGPT by itself may be great for that purpose, but if you have integrity within your organization, trust but verify. It's really important that you don't just spew out information.
Yeah, and it goes back to one of the the tenets of what we do as a digital marketing agency, and that is your brand is your promise, and it really comes down to the human element of you want to have experts like Shannon involved in the process to verify, to make sure that the sources are correct, and to make sure that as you're evolving with the AI, that you make sure that a person is there to add that, not just the human touch, but to make sure that the experience is one that is trustworthy.
Gotcha. Lovely point. So with that being said, we're coming up on 3 minutes left, and the questions that we've also seen. Oh, thank you, Ashley, for your amen. You're spot on. Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the other questions that was centered around what is the actual return on investment, and is this something that let's say that you're a person that's not using AI every day. Are you behind the ball if you start using AI now? Are you behind the ball? Are you still? Is it still? Is there still enough time to get on the train, or are you left in the dust?
I would say the train hasn't even left the station yet. In fact, we're still putting the cars attached to the engine itself. Number two, it's not necessarily just a return on your investment; it's a return on time. Some of the things that I want Shannon to chime in on this, but some of the things that you saw Shannon doing were absolutely time savers. We still had to put the work into refining them, but coming up with the numbers that she had of how much data was returned. There's an old axiom: it's easier to remove than it is to add, and ChatGPT will help get us to that point where we can start making decisions. Go ahead, Shannon, please.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many efficiencies with this on that time front. Like even thinking drafting an email to a client, I have to open up the email, think about what I'd like to say, start phrasing it, probably clean it up because I'd like to refine it, make sure I've made all of my points, proofread it, that, and then I'm doing that several times a day. That all adds up in time to being a very large part of your day. Whereas if you're able to rely on something like ChatGPT to formulate the baseline for it and you're just cleaning it up or having it edit so that you're not sending out anything that isn't exactly as you wanted it to be, you can move so much faster. Or like talking about those operations pieces or anything with kind of producing some of these large scale documents. Like I have had to work on large documents, multi-page documents, and they will sit on my project list for months because it's something where it really takes so much time and brain work to sit down and knock it out. Whereas if I'm able to have the bones given to me and I'm kind of filling in section by section, it becomes kind of more of a bite-sized project that I can kick out a lot faster. And that gives me time to do things that I'm good at and enjoy and that do have ROI.
Awesome. Well, I know that we're coming up to our time. So Shannon, do you want to go to the last slide?
Yeah.
We just wanted to say thank you on behalf of Evolve Systems for joining us on this panel presentation. If you enjoyed the content, we hope to see you next time. We're going to be continuing to improve, refine, and adding human touches to our content. And we hope to see you at future events. So with that being said, thank you all for your attendance. We greatly appreciate your human presence.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.